Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the content on the channel, and make sure to check me out on Twitch. Hey guys, and welcome to another champion breakdown. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite champions, Cull Obsidian. Cull has gotten an interesting kind of reputation since he was first released. With him being considered the top damaging champion in the game, completely overpowered, even Kabam saying that he does overpower every champion in the game before the enemy can get started, to now recently being put beyond God tier list on a lot of channels. So I wanted to explore this a little bit and show kind of the ideal gameplay, what he is good and what he probably is not very good for. So let's just jump right in to his abilities. Now the first thing that we have here is the signature ability slot. Now I would say that the awakened ability is kind of a medium requirement. It's not something that is going to absolutely break his gameplay. It's more of going to increase how long he can go in a fight. So when he does enter his route, which we're going to talk about in a second, where he dashes back, holds block, and gets a power boost, when that is on a cooldown, and the only way to get that back is with the special 3, so the main thing that we're going to be looking at with how powered up Cull is the persistent charges that he's going to get between matches. Now he's going to earn these in a variety of ways. There are 3 default missions, and then there are a couple synergies that can also slightly help him get those up, although he really doesn't need those specific synergies. In fact, I specifically use a completely different outside of Cull synergy to make sure that I get the most out of him. So the 3 that we're going to be trying, and these can be done multiple times through each fight, or multiple times throughout the quest, I should say, 1 time each per fight, would be to knock out a champion, simple enough, knock out an Avenger, hopefully, right? And the third would be just to knock out a champion, essentially at 100%, 95% without resetting during the fight. And that last one is going to be, sort of important. It's good to get that burst early on, and each one of those is going to buff Cull in a lot of ways. So the very first thing, he's going to gain his Thanos favor buff, and that's only going to be for 10 seconds initially, but it also is going to be paused every time we make contact. Now if you're hitting into their block, that is not going to pause the time at all. It has to be landed. And then for each of these persistent charges, he's going to gain a percentage, or not a percentage, but a buff to his attack, a buff to the critical damage rating, and then the big thing here is the true accuracy at 5 and above, so that you can hit all of those evade champions, whether it's Ultron, Mordo, even with his astral evade during that 10 seconds, or even longer if you're hitting into it. And then at 8 and above, the route duration, which is when we're going to be dashing back, holding, blocking, getting a temporary damage buff, which is a very significant buff. It's going to be 120% of our normal attack, but it's going to be energy based, which is kind of better than being just physical, depending on what enemy that you're going to be up against. So this is what we're talking about right here. And then well-timed blocked, his shield is also going to allow him to use the parry master against projectile attacks. So you're not limited on what you can and cannot parry as far as the enemy attacking you. Now when projectile does not mean special attacks. That's not what they're talking about there. They're talking about things like dominoes, guns, or Havoc's energy attack on his 5th attack, stuff like that. Now, his heavy attack is one of the most important things here. It's going to be part of our rotation. He has a very basic rotation and what we want the enemy to do the maximum amount of damage. So Cull is going to be able to heavy and armor break at a standard 50%. He's going to hit 3 times, and so it's going to be 3 chances at 50% initially, but that's going to go up by 5% for every persistent charge, so that by the time you hit 5 or 6 charges, it's going to be very reliable, and it helps us get the maximum amount out of Rout and Thanos' favor. So all of these stacking together is going to do the most amount of damage. Now when it comes to the special attacks, I very, very rarely would do special 1. Special 2 is a lot more damaging, but his special 3 is going to be by far the best option to deal the most damage. And when you are lower on Thanos charges, activating a Rout, which is going to temporarily give you that damage bonus, and then activating special 3 will give you the absolute maximum damage. So overall, he's an extremely easy champion to use, although for the first couple fights, you're going to be fighting potentially like a regular, just kind of a regular champion. There is a couple variations that you can do, whether it's the normal fight or just kind of spamming your heavy over and over again to hopefully, especially early on, get those extra damage bonuses through the armor break. Talking about synergies for a sec, his synergies can be useful in just getting your initial persistent charges up a little bit faster, but by no means are any of them a necessity. It might be fun to still use Corvus, but with both of them needing charges, it eats up a lot of the fights for either one of them potentially. So I usually will not even use that one at all, but for instance, Invasive Force knocking out a tech champion will get you 1 persistent charge. Now if this stacked, it would be a lot better, but it doesn't. So it gives you 1 more charge, which maybe that's what you need to push you over the edge in that one single fight, but by the end of the quest, you're almost always going to have all of them. Display of Strength, knocking out a champion while Rout is active is going to get you another persistent charge. Heroes Never Learn, launching a special attack grants a Fury buff. Now that one is kind of nice, but because of my personal playstyle with Cull, it's not really necessary. But it is definitely an option if you just needed that extra slot and you don't want to use the synergy that I am personally using. And then we have very basic enemies. So we'll talk about the formation of the party now. So I have Cull Obsidian, Nick Fury, who's going to be the central point in all of the synergy that we're doing here. So he is going to act with Deadpool X-Force and nullify our bleed debuff that I get from my bleed suicide. I do not have the poison suicide, I only have the bleed suicide, so that it's going to nullify that bleed debuff and actually give me 10% more health per fight. Quake is going to allow us to have 3 free dodges, and Heimdall will block any kind of death once per fight. So this is just kind of my basic tanking synergy that I use a lot of the time. If you have one specific champion that you really want to showcase or try out, it just helps keep his health up throughout the fights. Now, the couple of situations that we're going to get into where Cull is not going to be ideal is if you're going to have a champion that you are up against. He can still do it, it's just going to be a lot more difficult, and he does not shine quite as bright. So if the enemy is immune to armor break, is going to be a big one. If the enemy is also going to be immune to stuns, it's going to be a lot more difficult as well, because of our basic cycle of trying to deal as much damage as possible. So everything is going to happen that's important as far as the persistent charges go after the first couple fights is going to happen in the first couple seconds, and that determines how the rest of the fight is going to go. So we're just going to do a very basic uncollected. We are on the current uncollected quest. We're just going to be going against these 19Ks and then end with the boss, which is at this point the new champion Nova. And we're just gonna see how it goes. So here's our basic start. Parry into armor break. And hopefully, initially, again, we're only getting 50% chance with each. We're gonna activate Rout and see if between the armor break and route if we can deal enough damage to just get this over as quick as possible. Now, because they only have the one persistent charge that we began the fight with, we were not dealing as much damage as we should, or could have, I guess, not should have. We should not be dealing more damage necessarily. It's just kind of a regular fight here. Now, if you were against an enemy with a far higher health pool, I would say do not activate route. You only can get that one time per fight if he is not awakened. I would say wait until you have a special 3, then activate route, which is going to double the damage of your special 3, or more than double damage a little bit by that 120%. So if you have an enemy with a very substantial health pool, that's more of the route that I would take on that. But you're going to see we're going to get into a very specific flow here about the second or third fight. And we should be at 3, I believe. 3 persistent charges. Or 4, actually. 4, because I believe... Yeah, 4. Because we got every single persistent charge. We knocked out an enemy, we knocked out an Avenger, and we did not lose our combo meter, which is very important. Now this one, because it's Doctor Strange, might throw a wrench a little bit, because it is counterspell. So we'll just have to kind of be on the lookout for that. So we're pausing Thanos' favor, but he counterspelled it. So Thanos' favor is gone. That's fine. We still have our persistent charges. And now if you notice, our heavies already are starting to stack already. Now you don't really have to hit 7, but it was just kind of fun. So now we activated routes. Now we're dealing energy damage on top, and the match is over. So now we're really, really cooking. Now that we're over 5 charges, we're going to get that true accuracy, meaning we cannot be dodged. So this is actually interesting. I don't remember ever testing this out against Wasp. So, it should not work. Her auto dodge should not work. There it is. I think I just saw it. Evade failed. Yep. So as long as we have this, anything above 5 is going to be overkill for these fights. So we're going to activate route. Hopefully we'll can force her into a heavy, and then we just punish, and that's it. We're going to parry, armor break, armor break. We're going to dodge back, wait for the heavy, and then punish the heavy, and the match is over. That is essentially the premier attack cycle. We're going to try it again. Now that we've gotten into it. So, parry, heavy, heavy, parry. Get those up. Alright, now we dodge back, route. And wait. Oh! Ooh! She tried to punish us on that one, actually. Okay, there you go. Wow. She did try to special intercept us, guys. So the AI is not happy at all with this. But that's it. And with our synergy with Nick Fury, we are going to continue to regain that earlier health that we lost through fighting through normal means. Extinction Protocol, power gain. And again, that's why the stun lock and the armor breaks are... And we missed our parry there. And we don't want to let our Thanos favor expire. We're just going to do a 3 this time. Oh, and they got us with the heavy. Ha! Those quick dodges are putting in work. But there you go. That was with just 1. So you can even shorten it at a certain point. And I would say that almost at this point in the game where not many people have awakened 6 stars, not as many, or if you just don't have an awakened, using the 5-star version would obviously be almost better in a way, even at like an R4, if you can get his awakened ability. So I would say that those that have the 5-star version actually might be not necessarily more fortunate, but it's not going to impact your gameplay quite as much as a lot of champions might. And there you go. Evade failed, his auto block failed, and it's done. And this is why we're talking about him being such an overpowering champion as far as the burst damage at the initial fight. Essentially, the fights end before the enemy can get up their specials, before they can power up their combo meters, whatever they would normally use to get to max damage. And then even some paths such as Biohazard and stuff like that, as long as you can get those persistent charges up, you could end the fight before you would take significant damage or any kind of meaningful damage. So now we're here at the end boss for this month, which is Nova, and hopefully we don't die a horrible, horrible death. For a 40k, we're going to try to do it 2. We're actually powering him up with our armor breaks, by the way. And there you go. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Cull Obsidian pre-nerf. He is in the process of being nerfed. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And if you liked what you saw today or have a champion that you want to showcase, just put it in the comments below. And I hope you have a most wonderful day.